I think we'll get this started. So, are you joining in? Are you joining in?
Yes.
Okay. So here we are. This is the title, Alternative Accommodation Sector, Service Apartments, Co-Living, etc. A safer way of investors to get exposure to hospitality sector. And what did 2 years of pandemic teach us? So yeah, that's actually pretty subjective, the whole thing. Before I introduce these guys, our experts here, just reaching out to the audience. Alternative accommodation. Can somebody give me a couple of examples what alternative accommodation was before the pandemic? Anybody? Please, be interactive here.
No. Still
Airbnb, okay. Anything else? Medium stay, all right. And what was that? That was, yeah. Okay, apartment hotels, that's part of the extended stay segment, all right? Okay. Hostels. Hostels used to be alternative accommodation. You know, what's alternative? It's something that's away from the formal type of accommodation. Okay, it's all nuts and bolts stuff, all right? I don't want to be pedantic here. But that's actually quite, you know, that's changed a hell of a lot since the pandemic. So, you know, you've got this other thing happening, that hospitality going into the residential side, you know, that space being taken over. You have students now also being treated on a hospitality level. So a lot of different things going on there. So interesting cut we have here is we have David Jenkins from Radisson Group, in charge of the Baltics, CIS, right? And then we have the chairman of Ando Living, Hakan Kodal, with I don't know if you've seen his stand already, but a very appealing concept. I call it part of the albergo diffusi, the scattered hotel or horizontal hotel concept, but more of that later. So, yeah, talking about the pandemic, how did you see, David, you know, the change in travel? You know, what did you see patterns happening there?
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Hi. So yeah, I look after the Balkans and the Baltics and various other parts. If we're going to stick on topic, then I think the important thing to mention from our perspective was the success of our service apartment and apart hotel properties throughout the pandemic. We didn't close one of them. They all remained open and they all remained profitable all through the pandemic. Whereas like all other hoteliers, we closed 95% of our hotels.
So you saw a definite shift?
Absolutely. We saw something that we suspected. It confirmed our suspicions, and we'd been looking into that segment, not only, but that segment of non-traditional hotel. And through that couple of years, we've been spending a lot more time developing that concept and looking at how to expand that as a traditional hotelier, but looking into alternative ways of expanding those types of real estate. And so that was a big learning for us, in a positive way.
So on one side you're closing hotels, but the other you're increasing...
No, I mean, we weren't signing as many as we'd like through the pandemic, but certainly now what we have a development focus on service apartments and a development focus on resorts with residential components as well. These are the key learnings we've taken from it as we see that demand moving. And so as part of like my targets, I will have targets to specifically sign those types of deals, as will my colleagues as well.
So again, it's a bit I think a sort of driver of that was probably, you know, this whole, you know, workation, pleasure, as we want to call it, community and lifestyle.
I think it was mullet, as some declared.
Mullet, that's
yesterday.
yesterday. I didn't want to use that word, because
okay.
Mullet's not a sexy haircut, I don't know. But anyway, enough of that, okay. Yeah, Hakan, your take. What's your take on pandemic? What did you see a little bit before and then now, where we are now?
Well, we are, first of all, non-hotelier brand.
Yeah.
We started from the high-end residential. We did multiple projects in Istanbul, in Portugal, in multiple cities. And in reality, we discovered that the service department was pretty trendy 6-7 years ago. We have set up our first company in Portugal called Lovely Stay. Today we manage 800 apartments, third-party apartments, non-branded. But then we decided 4 years ago we should try the branded service department. And we tested. In reality, pandemic 2020, we have fine-tuned the brand, and we have realized 78% occupancy rate versus hotels 30% in Lisbon.
So you basically, it's residential going to the hospitality space.
Exactly.
Real estate meeting hospitality.
Exactly. So we're coming from the other side of the segment, but we have, for example, a beach club, which is, Condé Nast Travelers list second in Portugal. So we have other concepts which are on the entertainment side. But we decided, in reality, to move into branded service department 2 years ago. That's how we moved to, to completely changing the strategy with the recent trends. In reality, what we are talking about is a community and lifestyle, which was the lacking part of the service department. Because standardization exists, and a lot of brands are doing it. But a lifestyle, a community, that was the missing part.
And were those locations that probably weren't, in terms of, the brands, classic locations? Do you think your places have defined a new location?
Well, the beauty on our side, and at the same time a challenge and difficulty, is to find enough number of apartments. And that's why the concept is based on scattered buildings. In reality, what we need to do is to do a clubhouse in a neighborhood, which will become the center of the neighborhood. So that's why we call Ando your neighborhood. In reality, we invite people to join the neighborhood and to experience, a lot of things, cool working, cool living, meeting local people, meeting international community in the clubhouse. But then the apartments are not in the same building. So we can have multiple buildings so that we can reach 150 apartments per club in a neighborhood where the club is not a private club at all. So it's open to public.
So it looks like Soho, but smells differently. It's not so...
Because we have discovered, and we have spent a lot of time on the strategy of the brand. In reality, when you have the hotel entrance, people don't want to get in because they are afraid. They think it's expensive, or it's a hotel product. Or when you do Soho type of, it's exclusive, so you can't enter. It's only for members. So in reality, our brand is inclusive. So it's invite people to get in, and that's why the travelers wants to be with these guys. In reality, why we are going to Lisbon, I want to meet locals and an international community. I want to go to the restaurants where they are. And that's the idea. So we want to create a point, which is the heart of the brand, the clubhouse, where we have restaurant, bar, concept store, cool working spaces, so they can switch between business and leisure. It's a bit like Hoxton, and rather than Soho.
And are you selling room nights as well, or are they all residents, people living there consistently?
In reality, it's a combination of short-term, extended stay, and local living. So that's why we have higher occupancy rates, but it's a bit difficult. But we have separate buildings, which enables us to have certain buildings which is pure short-term, and certain buildings which can be living and local living. Yeah.
Andrea's got a question. She wants to jump in here.
You want this?
It's working now. I mean, many hotel concepts always try to get the local people in, right? And I think that's absolutely the way to go. But how do you create this community that also local people go there?
We have a natural advantage to start with. We have started with international community, the business. We have investors and clients from 33 different countries now. So, which is, great a basis, and we have set up a fund which is also backed by these community. So in reality, we have Ando community created, and that's why our job is to help them to identify themselves with the brand. That's the key for the brand, the community. So that's why we are working with local operating partners wherever we go, who has this vibe, and we're partnering with them. So the clubs will be operated in partnership with the successful operators locally, because it's not an international business at all. So we are trying to partner in Istanbul with the right guys, in Lisbon with the right guys, and it's very difficult in the F&B business to have one international successful concept.
That's an interesting point you picked up, because actually, when I look at the pandemic, and I think the brands have picked up on this very good. International brands work because they work at a local level. They're taken in on the local level. But definitely, the majority of places, it seems, and anybody can comment on this, please do, it was the food and beverage thing that kept a lot of places going, because I'm living in Hamburg. We have a fantastic couple of places there, great hotel. Actually, it's a combination of food and beverage outlets with rooms on tops. So usually when they're running in a normal situation, it's 60% food and beverage income and 40% rooms revenue. But that actually increased, and what was keeping some of these places going was that whole food and beverage offer. And you've got the owners or people in the hotel, coming to us and say, "We're so grateful that you've come. Even if you just come by for an espresso, we want your €5 with us and nowhere else." And that was sort of happening just generally. What's interesting about that is that this the situation accentuated a lot more. Think of the Eden Group. A lot of examples I'll give are products or things from mature markets, but the Eden Group lock. Wherever they go, they partner up with a local player, and it's usually very much a lifestyle, scene thing. Good people who do great cocktail bar beverages and interesting food. We saw, it's a few years ago, giving away our ages here, but 25 Hours reached out to Nenny, from Vienna, and that's worked out really well, bringing basically Mediterranean, Tel Aviv-style food into hotels in lots of different parts of Europe now. So, I mean, as my one question though is, as a brand, as Radisson, you've had to you have to rethink your development plan now, haven't you?
As a brand and as an operator as well, you're sometimes reacting to what investors are doing, you're reacting to trends. You're hopefully trying to create brands that will fit into the time and the place. And yes, that feeds into your development strategy as well. We're also, you look at what other people are doing, you look at lifestyle objects in restaurants and F&B, and you adapt as you go along. And then you try to, for example, one thing we did through the pandemic as well was create what's called a convertible room. And you can see this in the upcoming Red in Madrid. It's taking a guest room and working how it's not. We didn't create this concept. It came out of New York, but it's having a room that can be easily convertible from a bedroom to a meeting room within several minutes, and with minimum staffing. So the bed's in the ceiling, the chairs are in the wall, just to make that room look and feel like a meeting room within several minutes. Now that's using accommodation alternatively, if you want to fit back into the topic, but it's also using real estate in a clever way, and it's trying to optimize and monetize square meters in a hotel going forward, which again is investor friendly and operator friendly because we can get more fees. So there are very different ways where, as an operator, you're reacting, adapting, changing, and creating, but it's very much around the investor and what the investment mood is, and what the investment trends are at the time.
Well, we have good news, because the last panel, one thing I did particularly pick up on, and of course the bank always has the last say, doesn't it? So we had it here that the Bank of Greece said they were very interested in mixed use. So that's part residential, could be commercial, what have you, and they found that very interesting. And that coming from here, that means Athens and this region we are talking about during this conference, that gives all a little bit of hope. So in days of jeopardy or what have you, uncertainty, it's quite good that the banks are actually saying, well, we see that quite positively. Another aspect of all this, just picking out of the sky here, digitalization. A lot of changes since that. I think one thing about the pandemic was. It was a disruptive thing, and it, of course, accelerated change. And one of them was digitalization. Again, if I could ask you, you at Limehome, weren't you? So that was actually, that wasn't coming from hospitality immediately. That was more coming from a different sector. And again, interestingly enough, we can deal with this later. The money, venture capital, getting behind this. There are, a lot of players in this now. Some of them you never heard of before, or they're doing crowdfunding. We've got here Bob W, Best of Both Worlds. They've done crowdfunding and found ways to roll out, and also highly digitalized. So what was your take with Limehome? How do you see all this fitting in, what was going on, and then starting out with Limehome?
Yeah, Limehome saw itself more as a tech startup than as a hospitality startup. Also, their investors in the background came also more from this tech background, basically. And I can remember there were also quite established hotel companies looking at Limehome, trying to take them over. But in the end, their multiple was too high because they didn't have a multiple on like what you would have a multiple on a hotel property or a hotel company, but like on like a tech startup. So their valuation was much higher because they see themselves more as a platform, as a tech platform, and that's where they are growing, I think, rather than a hospitality startup.
So the residential thing was just a vehicle for them,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah. And did you see a great difference between that and all the extended stay segment? I mean, we're talking about alternative accommodation, and but I think it's quite good for what our purposes here in our 40 minutes that we just stay with this. We don't need to talk about hostels or clamping, co-living for students, co-living for elderly, But I think here with extended stay, it's very similar. How do you see that, that segment? Because that's like there are two segments of that, of extended stay, service departments and service living. So when dealing with Limehome, how did that change, going from classic?
Well, I think one thing that they first did was or maybe not first, but one of the first was that they didn't really focus on this long stay, but they were still a hotel product, just with, you had this additional opportunity to stay longer if you wanted. You were just more flexible to react to those market situations, like, for example, to the crisis and so on, because you had more opportunities.
So, okay, with this digitalization thing, there's another point that picks up, of course. Before, we were fighting in the industry to attract people to come and work in the industry, and they could see a career for themselves. Pandemic, a lot of people were furloughed. That was it. Cut out, lost their jobs, and they went to work elsewhere. And in many cases, they didn't come back. So actually, the situations got worse. So digitalization and making, having a concept with far leaner amount of staff and all those costs involved. You think that was also a contributor from digitalization?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, their main advantage compared to hotel properties was, of course, that they were completely staffless. Also, during the crisis was a great thing because it was all contactless. Mm-hmm. But then, at the same time, they didn't have any public spaces. So the spatial efficiency was like the spatial efficiency of a residential building. And even sometimes, they took over an old individually run hotel and they rebuilt the breakfast room into another 2-3 rooms, which obviously is super interesting for the investors because they increase the number of rooms, which is what they get the rent on. So these two, spatial efficiency, staff efficiency, these are the two main advantages.
Philip, what's that with Best of Both Worlds?
Look, I mean, Best of Both Worlds, Bob W, we're in 5 countries delivering apartments, serviced apartments. But the point I'd make here is that we're delivering space for people to live, to stay, to work. It's all the same. We talk about these different sectors, hotels and everything else. It's just about delivering a product that people want to see and want to live in at the same time. What we're finding is that the digital interaction works very, very well because people don't need somebody on the reception desk at 2 a.m. in the morning checking them in. They're very happy to do it themselves. What people want are the facilities within the apartment So they're staying longer. They're not
Do you
staying
think
shorter.
with the pandemic, the health issue, because lots of people, lots of staff and everything was suddenly very unhealthy, really, wasn't it? So do you think that was partly a drive for all that?
Well, people generally are very unhealthy in the way that we live, and hygiene standards differ from country to country. Obviously, they do. And people do worry about that. So if they can rock up at the apartment at whatever time in the day and get into their apartment and know it's been ridiculously well cleaned, which is one of our strap lines, then clearly they're going to feel comfortable with it. But that's got to be delivered on the floor. It's no good it not being clean and you're saying it is clean. So you've got to make sure it is actually done.
That's interesting because...
Can I add one thing here?
Dive in.
I think
Hakan.
that's the point combined. In reality, since Airbnb started, people discovered that they don't have to spend, for example, the food expenses crazy in a restaurant of the hotel, which is very expensive at the end. So people want to take a coffee, but in a normal coffee shop. So that's why, I mean, your answer was to say, how can you make attractive the hub or the club? It has to be a local prices. It has to be a local coffee shop that everybody wants to go. So I don't have to pay €4 this coffee. So that's the one of the element. The second element is the digitalization, as you said. In reality, people wants to go into an apartment. Why? They have so much flexibility in using it. So they can have a business meeting. They can spend the family. They can order what they want, exactly. And in reality, they can check in as they want, and they can get the service they want, if they want. So they're not obliged. So that feeling is the belonging to a city. I want to discover, because there are so many online now blogs where I can find where I have to eat, where I have to shop, and etc. So I think it's a combination of facility of having a service department.
When I travel, actually, the more I've been traveling, the less I like being in the classic hotels. No offense, but and one thing I really love is when I go to the city of Vienna, there's a concept called Grätzl Hotel. And Grätzl is, the Germans call it Kiez, but it means a quarter, quartier. It's like a community thing. And what they did was, and it was very clever, because actually what we're talking about is sort of solving a real estate problem, I think. And what was happening in Vienna, in all these little cute little areas where all these little markets are, the weekly market, or they've got nice coffee shops and restaurants, okay? You had suddenly these old shops. Somebody had been running them, a couple of generations, what have you, and then the place was empty. And so, in the end, I think it was about 15 of these, but it spread over 3 different parts of Vienna. They scooped out the inside and got in a designer and came up. So it's actually, they turned what used to be a shop into a suite. Okay, think about this. So you've got like 100, 110 square meters to yourself. When you make the booking, the moment you make payment, so on the booking, you by paying online, you check in, and you get immediately a reply, not only a confirmation that your money went through, that's good, but you get a code, like a digital code, okay? And when you arrive, and it doesn't matter what time you arrive, there's actually a metal box on the side with a keypad, put in your code, plop, your key comes out, and you have access to your room. And it's great. When I travel, I take my dogs with me if I'm driving, and it's brilliant because I don't have the hassle, and there's no people. I don't need the classic hotel scenario. The horizontal hotel or the scattered hotel situation is full in play if you want it, if you don't. But you come to Athens, there's a lovely hotel and everything, but actually you want to be somewhere, where you walk around the corner in your flip-flops and have a coffee and most people don't eat every day a huge buffet of food, that's it. So I think part of the lifestyle community, we see this immediate interaction, the crossover with working life and leisure. So I came early to this conference, I'll leave later, all right? So I'd never been to Athens before, and it was the same, wherever I travel. I think
I do the same. Look, when I travel on my vacation, I've got the dog, and I was down in Cornwall this year in England, and it's a very similar concept to this. I got a code up front, pressed the code, got the key in the apartment, 2 weeks with the family. It's fantastic. The things can all coexist.
Yeah.
Everybody, that doesn't mean that that's going that way. That's a great evolution of the hospitality business, is those types of digitalized apartment business, and I think it's fantastic, you know.
But this
that's also a real estate
Yeah.
issue, because the guy who's building that is selling those apartments to third parties. They're putting them back into a rental pool, which we're also doing. So you're also getting, you know, real estate dividends by doing that.
I was trying to pull up some statistic on this just to put some meat on the bones, and the only figure I immediately came up with was America, which is a pretty mature market. And last year, there was a shift into the alternative accommodation space of about 1%. Now that 1% has a market share of $2.5 billion. So that was last year, and we're having a bumper year now, so, you know, if you're investing, and Bank of Greece is paying, so some form of mixed use with some extended stay concept is going to do quite well. I don't know. I think so. Sounds to me.
I mean, I mean, the things I'm signing in this part of the world, and I'm kind of extending that a little bit to Georgia and around that area, Turkey as well. It's a lot of mixed use. It's a lot of mixed use, including residential, including, you know, service apartments, including office, including co-working, including, you know, retail. But there's always components of mixed use, because from the investment perspective, it makes perfect sense, and of course from a demand perspective as well.
You've been talking about, we've been talking product and development, investment. What about the legal side? Is George familiar here? No? Okay, any legal person here? Lawyers? It's always interesting to know, because there is a difference between, obviously, you've got a sort of a clash of the residential, legal aspect, and then hospitality. And of course it differs from one, you know, country or region to the other. So that's always, you know, worth noting.
I could just maybe do an intro on this, and
Yeah.
maybe there will be some lawyers to talk about that. That's one of the key components of the service department brands. We are now expanding to 7 countries. We are operational in Portugal, and now growing in Istanbul, Turkey, entering to multiple markets. The key problem we have is the legislation. It's very local legislations. For example, in Portugal, you know, now we manage 800 apartments plus branded Ando, 1,300 in total. So we're reaching a critical size, but there's a legislation helping us, you know, because there's a touristic apartment license. So I can put a license on a building like a hotel, and I can sell individual apartments, which helps me to finance the project. But when I go to Spain, it becomes much difficult. So I have to have a hotel license. Or when I go to Turkey, it's residential only. There's no apartment. So either hotel license or residential. In Greece, I'm sure there are other guys. So it's very difficult to have a standardization of the product in multiple markets. In Dubai, it's something else. So
Actually,
that's the key component.
Looking at another form of alternative accommodation, looking at student living. And funnily enough, you'll get a building planning, planning permission, license for student living. And you think, well, okay, why don't I somehow, I could do, more of a hospitality thing. You won't get the hospitality license for it, which is quite strange. Angie, where's he? Here, our man from Poland. You used to have, I think you sold it recently, quite well. You used to have a block of apartments and you were doing student living, weren't you? In Warsaw. But did you convert it from student to residential or the other way around?
No, this was the old office building, which is converted to the student housing.
Okay. And was that a legal, investment-wise, all right, all taken care of? But legally, was that a difficult jump?
No, because the zoning for this particular location allows for all type of the commercial usage. That was
how many units were in there?
Oh, there will be 500 units, huge one. The student house.
Yeah. A long time ago, when we met, I was driving through Warsaw, and we were finding out, and I was quite amazed. There's huge buildings and everything, and some in various states of disarray, and so incredible to move forward. And actually, when I think about real estate, you're like I have an inquiry at the moment in my city where I'm living, Hamburg, and they just want to put in a 360-room hotel. And I said, well, look at the pipeline. You've got down the next side street, you've got another 250 unit coming in, just as standard. And don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with the Holiday Inns of the world and these some things, but nobody needs them anymore, not really. And also, because we have to address the banks and the financing. And then again, we've got the whole ESG sustainability thing. What happens in 20 years' time? That area where we are developing is an extension of a harbour area. And before people, 10 years ago, people would never look at it for a hotel or any hospitality thing. The chances are, because the city is growing, okay, what you have is these niche areas coming up that can immediately be some form of mixed use, extended stay, whatever, lifestyle concept with in an area that usually never had an interesting food and beverage concept like 25 Hours or Citizen M, Eden, these guys. And then in about 15, 20 years' time, people will start coming into that area as residential. So, you know, that's another thing, instead of just building as at a hotel. I don't know, has anybody had that? Has anybody experienced any projects like that? Anybody had anything like that recently?
It's happening enough. It's in Piraeus, actually.
Yeah?
Has been transformed into offices plus residential for the people working there, which are actually expats working for large organizations abroad. So they have created a hub where it used to be an industrial area of the main port of Athens, Piraeus.
Okay. And is that a local player? Is that somebody known for, you know?
It's a real estate fund coming from Greece, a big one.
Okay. And who's operating it?
I don't know the details. I guess they are doing it themselves, but it's out for sale. So.
Okay. And they're doing a big food and beverage offering as well?
Yeah, everything.
So, yeah, they're creating a new location that didn't really...
And the neighborhood as well.
Lifestyle and community. Okay.
No, we're doing something similar in Budapest. We have a project there called Budapart. It's a big new community, and it's like they call this 15-minute living, where you're never further than 15 minutes from your office. We have one hotel there, but the rest of it's apartments, offices, retail, F&B, and it's a whole community on the Buda side of Budapart. So I mean, the hotels can still exist in those environments as well, adding to it.
Well, one of the key elements after the pandemic is remote working. In reality, we are trying to focus on mainly international community, progressive nomads, so they can work anywhere. So that's concept of moving from business and leisure or leisure to business. It's a daily life now, so we can work anywhere. That's why I think we are trying to create this from 10 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning till midnight, places. So placemaking is very much important. That's why, so that people can start with their laptops in the morning and then have lunch, business or friend, and in the afternoon have some booking for video conference boxes. Then go to meet people, have a private meeting room, and then ask their friends to come for the bar. And then in the afternoon, it can be, you know, so it's a multi-purpose spaces.
If I didn't know better,
but it shouldn't look
you're talking
business
about the
at all.
concept of Zoku.
Huh?
That's very similar to Zoku.
Yeah, but the key element, it shouldn't be looking business. People don't want to. That's why, you know, even Soho House now, people are going for what? You know, for meeting people, but at the same time they are asking for business meetings. But it doesn't look like business. So business is boring. I'm really sorry about that. You know, that's why, you know.
No, it's got to be fun.
I'm trying to be cool with my partners, which are 36, 38-year-old.
Don't worry, Hakan, you're cool.
Cool white hair guy. But the fact is this is what we want. We don't want to be in a serious world.
Well, that's why, I mean, it's interesting because there's another element to this. We've done legislative stuff, the investment side. Design. I don't know if Piotr is here today. Piotr Kozlowski from MXD Design. He did a lot of stuff. He's based out of Krakow. He's done a lot of stuff for Accor Group. And one of the things, one of the brands is Hoxton. So, you know, Hoxton, Soho, Citizen M, you know, have become really hip.
Radisson Red.
Radisson Red.
Thank you.
Well, no, yeah, please.
But yeah, I'm here.
I'm just ignorant. Okay, it's good. No, but and the thing is design. You know, exactly. Making functional space, and this is where it comes into the Radisson Red room. It's actually using functionality of you know, furnishings and the whole design concept.
We are working with, for example, companies like Avroco or Works of Substance, which are, you know, pretty international companies. But in reality, they have done, you know, Hoxton or Soho or Six Senses or new trendy. What the key component here is really making the client feel good. That's the key element. It's placemaking. So you have to have really very high ceilings, light. These are the key elements. But the most important thing is the pricing. So you shouldn't be doing so much expensive places, but because you need young people to come in. So that's the socializing component. I want to see young people, so that if you make a huge, investment at very luxury, people don't come in. So you have to welcome people. That's why you have to create this neighborhood center. That's the key element. That's the future, to build a community. Because otherwise, it becomes a one location just for one brand. But it's very difficult to make it an international community. That's what we are trying to do. I hope that in 5 years, I will be still here sitting, and then I will be telling you that it was a success. But this is what we are trying to do. And this is the future. It's really technology, yes, everybody can do. Expensive architecture, everybody can do. Spend on marbles. But the key element, how my client can feel good. That's the key thing,
so you make
they
the rate,
feel part of it.
You make the rate attractive, and the place is but still very affordable. But actually, they don't leave your place. They leave their extra money.
I want people to come from the neighborhood, from the city, which are like travelers alike. Okay. And I have to go to the neighborhoods where there's a footfall. So, for example, I can have my townhouse here, just residential, but I will never do my club here. I have to be in the center, where I have the young traffic. I need to walk in. That's the key component. Otherwise, I cannot become what you said. How can I be attractive? So I have to have my placemaking, pricing right, at the right location, and of course, right service. Otherwise,
So primarily,
it's challenging. I know that it's challenging.
So primarily, a little bit what you were talking about earlier. A community project, or what the community is actually, it's not just your bread and butter business, it's an important part. It's the most part of because you've got the locals getting involved, playing, and then attracting outsiders, because that's suddenly an interesting area. Yeah. How are we doing for time?
You're the moderator.
I don't know, I'm waiting for the wave.
Know.
The wave?
You're getting
yes?
the nod. Yeah.
Anybody, any question? Yeah, Robert, please. Yeah, go on.
With everything that's being said, I just want to have your view on if it's a safer way for investors in comparison to traditional hotel.
I don't think it's one or the other. I have to say that I'm a traditional hotel company, but I think what we're doing is part of what we're doing, a lot of what we're doing is residential as well. But it's the investor is selling the units, but it's still a hotel. So we recently signed something in Georgia, 500 keys. Every key will be sold, and then those will come back into the rental pool. So that's one form of an investor getting a good return, the bank being happy, we being happy, and it can coexist. It doesn't mean that everything's going to go that way or not. I think the case by case, city by city, region by region, investor by investor.
So there are two types of investors here. The question is one for the developer. The second is the buyer of the unit. And third is for the management company, of course. For the management company, to start with, is much profitable because you're, for doing a service department, your margins are higher because you have little, common area. In total, I'm talking. So when we do, for example, a service department in one neighborhood, we are trying to reach 150, 200 apartments. I cannot do it in one building, so that's why I have to go in multiple buildings. But I have only one club house, which is the F&B operation, but it has to be successful and sustainable. So the rest is profit. So for management company, it's profitable. Second is the developer. In reality, I can partner with developers, and if there's any in this room, I'm very much interested. We have proven that there's, standard buildings, which has nothing special. If I have the club and connect their building to my club, they can sell 20 to 25% higher prices because it's branded, because they use my facilities. There is no feasibility to do the facilities in his building, but I am doing it for the neighborhood. So I can connect with them, so the developers can make more money with less investment. Third is the buyer of the unit. The buyer of the unit, how can I make him happy? Giving returns guaranteed. Second, rental pool. But the third, I'm trying to give now an international community so that he can not just only use my Lisbon facilities, but he can use the Istanbul facilities, Dubai facilities, so, and he don't have to pay for this like Soho. So that's the key element. So everybody has to be happy so that, you know, at the end, we all make money out of it.
You picked up also, again, on a point about branding. You're creating a brand, and actually, I think financing banks, end investors find comfort in a brand. That's, I think that's quite healthy. Do we have any more? Oh, Andrea.
You said you have to have affordable pricing. Since you have like so many different locations within the macro location, and probably also the apartments are all completely different, do you then have 200 different room categories, or how do you do the pricing?
We have started with the scattered apartments. So now, for example, in Portugal, we are managing 800 apartments in different locations. It's a pain in the ass, for sure. Some of them are not profitable at all. So that we are now launching Ando to make this neighborhood a central location. Otherwise, it's not feasible. That's why we have to reach a certain critical size of one neighborhood. That's for sure. But people are looking different alternatives. So I don't want to go into, I mean, of course, there's a huge market for those hotels, but our clients, international community, don't want to be in the same building, same type of apartments. They want diversity, so that I can offer that diversity, but there is one always club facility that they can use. So it's a walking distance. Walking distance, 10 minutes, 15 minutes is the key element for us, so that I can reduce my management cost. So through one club, I can serve 150 apartments. But if it is scattered, it's terrible. It's
so I'm going to pick up on that. You know, picking up on an alternative. The next session is going to start, so we have to end it here. But I hope you've enjoyed and you found it informative, you found it nourishing, and maybe a little bit entertaining. But you know, you come back with some good thoughts. And if you have any questions, these guys, you know, please fire away at them over a coffee or lunch. Thank you very much.